America is full of places with beautiful names, inspirational names, names that sound like they were chosen by poets. And then there are these places, named after accidents, drunk arguments, misspellings, and moments where someone clearly said, "Hey, close enough." Tonight we explore American towns whose names should not exist, but do. And yes, people live there. They pay rent there. They put it on job applications. Let's begin. Intercourse. No, it's not a joke. Pause if you need to. Yes, you're allowed to say it out loud. Every road sign, every weather report, every GPS instruction. Intercourse. Somewhere a middle schooler is still laughing. Intercourse was originally named using an old meaning of the word social connection or community interaction, which was wholesome, respectable, completely innocent. Then language evolved. Maturity did not. At one point, the town tried to change its name. They thought maybe, just maybe, this wasn't helping. Tourists stopped coming. Souvenir sales dropped. Suddenly, no one cared about community connection anymore. So they changed it back. Because sometimes the joke is the economy. Intercourse leaned in. Merchandise exploded. Tour buses returned. And America once again proved that if something is embarrassing enough, it becomes profitable. Truth or consequences. This town used to have a perfectly normal name. Hot Springs, relaxing, sensible, the kind of name you forget immediately. Then a radio show showed up and asked a dangerous question. Would you like free publicity forever? The deal was simple. Rename the town after the radio show, Truth or Consequences, and America would talk about you. The town council didn't debate. They didn't hesitate. They didn't even blink. They said yes immediately. This is how marketing wins. The name officially changed in 1950. People assumed it was temporary, a stunt, a phase, like frosted tips. 70 years later, it's still there, on maps, licenses, hospital forms, and birth certificates. Hope you enjoy explaining that at airports. Today, the town celebrates the radio show every year, because when you commit to a branding mistake, you really commit. Truth or Consequences learn something important. History fades, logic fades, but a bad name with good publicity, that's forever. Boring. Boring is named after a man named William Boring, a real person, with dreams. Probably none of them involved becoming the punchline of geography. History has a sense of humor. It just waits longer than you expect. For years, the town tried to escape its destiny. They attempted rebranding, community initiatives, hope, optimism. None of it worked. Because once the internet finds you, you're done. So Boring did the unthinkable. They stopped fighting it, they leaned in, and officially twinned with dull Scotland, forming the world's least exciting international alliance. Diplomacy, but make it depressing. Today, Boring wears its name like armor. Merchandise sells. Tourists visit ironically. And the town has achieved something rare. Peace. Not excitement, just peace. This is what acceptance looks like. Hell. Legend says early settlers were told the land was so remote, so swampy, so unpleasant, they could name it anything they wanted. Someone reportedly said, "You can call it hell." They didn't laugh. They wrote it down. No one expected the name to stick, but hell committed. Hard. It appeared on maps. Mail got delivered. Children were born there and had to explain that sentence for the rest of their lives. This is how jokes become geography. Every winter, hell freezes over, literally, which the town treats not as irony, but as a marketing opportunity. When temperatures drop, headlines rise, and hell gets its moment. And of course, they sell merchandise. Go to hell mugs, I survived hell shirts, fire and ice souvenirs everywhere. Because no matter how bad the name, capitalism always adapts. Even hell has a gift shop. Accident. Accident began the way all great ideas do, with two land surveyors confidently being wrong. They both claimed the same land. Maps overlapped, egos clashed, and instead of fixing the paperwork, they named the town Accident. Now most towns would correct the mistake, redraw the lines, call a meeting, do literally anything responsible. Accident chose honesty, radical, brutal honesty. They looked at the situation and said, yes, this feels accurate. And just like that, the error became official. Mail arrived, people settled, children were born in accident, which means at some point, someone had to say, I wasn't planned, I was born in accident. Language is powerful. Today, accident still exists. Quiet, functional, emotionally stable enough. The land dispute is long forgotten. The name remains. A permanent reminder that sometimes history doesn't correct mistakes. It files them and moves on. Why? Why is named after the shape of its roads. They formed a why, that's it. No legend, no tragedy, no misunderstood hero, just geography doing the bare minimum. Originally, the town wanted to name itself Y. One letter, efficient, honest. The post office said no. Apparently, even bureaucracy has standards. So the town compromised. They added 2 letters, not to explain anything, just to satisfy paperwork. And thus, Y was born, not because of philosophy, not curiosity, but compliance. Today, Y remains exactly what it sounds like. A question, a shrug, a town that looked at effort and said, no. And somehow, it worked. Sometimes minimal effort doesn't just win, it gets officially recognized by the federal government. Peculiar. Peculiar exists because of bureaucracy. Pure, unfiltered bureaucracy. The town kept submitting names to the post office, and the post office kept rejecting them. Too common, too similar, too normal. So someone had an idea, a desperate idea. They asked for a peculiar name, something so unusual it couldn't possibly be rejected. The post office approved it immediately. No notes, no follow-up questions. Just, sure. And just like that, the workaround became the identity. What started as sarcasm turned into permanence. Maps were printed, signs were installed. Children grew up in peculiar without irony, because irony fades faster than paperwork. Today, peculiar wears the name proudly. Merchandise exists. Tourists smile knowingly. And the town lives on as proof that sometimes the fastest way through a system is not logic, but sarcasm. Government-approved sarcasm. No name. No name exists because someone forgot to finish a form. That's not a metaphor. That's the entire origin story. A placeholder was entered. No name. And everyone assumed it would be fixed later. It was not. Time passed. Maps were printed. Road signs went up. Mail started arriving. At some point, correcting it would have required effort. And effort is where history often gives up. People moved in. Lives happened. Children grew up in no-name Colorado, which means writing that on forms forever. Every introduction becomes a clarification. Every clarification becomes a story. Today, no name remains exactly that. Not symbolic, not ironic, just unfinished. A reminder that sometimes history isn't shaped by bold decisions, but by the absence of follow-up emails. Ding Dong. Ding Dong was named after a store sign, not a legend, not a misunderstanding, a sign. It featured 2 bells. One went ding, the other went dong. History paused, nodded, and moved on. The store belonged to a local businessman who wanted something eye-catching. He got it. Travelers remembered the bells. Directions became simple. Turn left at Ding Dong. Clarity was achieved through sound effects. Eventually, the area around the store needed a name. No committee, no vote, no branding consultant charging 5 figures. They looked at the sign. They heard the bells. Decision made. Today, Ding Dong still exists. Quiet, rural, and completely serious about its unserious name. The bells no longer ring, but the legacy does. Because sometimes the most permanent decisions in history are made with absolutely no follow-up questions. Toad Suck. Toad Suck got its name from riverboat crews who stopped here to drink. Not socially, not casually, professionally. They drank so aggressively that locals claimed they sucked the toads dry, which is not medically accurate, but emotionally honest. This was a major stop along the Arkansas River. Boats docked, men disembarked. Self-control immediately disembarked with them. Stories grew larger, details got looser, and sobriety quietly left town. Over time, the phrase stuck, not because it was dignified, not because it made sense, but because it perfectly captured the vibe. Someone eventually wrote it down. Someone else printed it on a map. Mistakes were made permanent. Today, Toad Suck is calmer. The river still flows. The name still raises eyebrows. And the toads remain hydrated. But the town stands as proof that in American history, if a nickname survives long enough, it becomes geography. Nameless. Nameless tried to be a normal town. They submitted names, reasonable ones, serious ones. The post office rejected them, again and again. Eventually, the town did what any exhausted group of humans would do. They gave up. At some point, someone wrote nameless on the form, not as a joke, not as a statement, just as a placeholder. And the system finally said yes. No objections, no questions. Defeat officially approved. Once accepted, it couldn't be undone. Maps were printed, signs were posted. Mail arrived addressed to Nameless, Tennessee, which means at some point someone proudly said, "I'm from Nameless," and just waited for the follow-up questions. Today, Nameless remains exactly what it sounds like. Not symbolic, not ironic, just tired. A town that didn't lose its name, it surrendered it, and somehow that honesty stuck. Hurt. Hurt was named after a railroad official, a real person, with a last name that accidentally feels like a diagnosis. This was not poetic intent. This was paperwork. History sometimes lands jokes it never meant to tell. At the time, the name meant nothing emotional. It was just a surname. Neutral. Professional. Then language caught up, and suddenly the town sounded less like a place and more like a status update. People moved in, life continued. Mail arrived stamped Hurt, Virginia, which means generations of residents have had to explain that yes, they live in Hurt. No, they're fine. Thanks for asking. Today, Hurt is quiet, functional, perfectly normal, emotionally still ambiguous. The name remains a reminder that towns don't choose how they're perceived. Language decides later, and it rarely checks in first. Uncertain. Uncertain is called uncertain because no one is certain why. There are theories, rumors, shrugs passed down through generations. Nothing confirmed, which feels less like a failure and more like commitment to the brand. Some say the name came from riverboat travelers who were unsure where they were. Others claim it was a surveyor's mistake. A few insist it meant something once, and time simply erased the explanation. History's official response? Possibly. Despite the uncertainty, people stayed. Homes were built, mail was delivered. Children grew up confidently saying, "I'm from uncertain," and waiting for the joke to land. It always does. Today, uncertain remains peaceful, stable, functioning, completely unsure why it's called what it's called. A town that proves you don't need answers to survive. Just paperwork approval and enough time for confusion to become tradition. Rough and Ready. Rough and Ready was named by gold miners, which explains everything. They weren't poets. They were tired, dusty, and allergic to subtlety. They looked around at the chaos, nodded once, and named the town after the vibe. The town quickly lived up to its name. Law was optional, arguments were frequent, and diplomacy was mostly shouting. This wasn't a place you visited. It was a place you endured. At one point, Rough and Ready decided the union was inconvenient, so they seceded. Not dramatically, not successfully, just briefly, and very emotionally. It lasted about as long as most gold rush decisions. Eventually, the gold ran out, tempers cooled, and Rough and Ready quietly rejoined civilization. The name stayed, because once you call a town Rough and Ready, changing it would feel dishonest. Some places aren't refined, they're historically committed. Nowhere. Nowhere is officially a census-designated place, which means the government acknowledges it exists, but only barely. Unofficially, it's a conversation ender. Say you're from nowhere and people stop asking follow-up questions, because what comes after that? The name didn't come from poetry or philosophy. It came from convenience, a spot that needed labeling, a place between places. Someone wrote nowhere, meaning temporary. History interpreted it as final. People still live here. They wake up, they go to work, they receive mail addressed to nowhere, Oklahoma, which sounds like a threat, but functions perfectly fine. Normal life, extreme branding. Today, nowhere remains exactly what it claims to be. Not lost, not forgotten, just finished. A town that proves you don't need a destination to exist, just a name no one argues with, because no one argues with nowhere. OK. OK was named after a railroad worker. His name was OK initials. Efficient, professional, no symbolism, no ambition. Just a name that quietly lowered expectations from the start. At the time, it made sense. Railroads named stops after people, people named towns after stops. And nobody stopped to ask whether living in OK might feel a little emotionally neutral. Over time, the name took on a personality. Not good, not bad, just fine. Asking how things are in OK will never give you a clear answer. And that's kind of the point. Today, OK still exists. Functional, stable, emotionally middle of the road. The town doesn't promise greatness. It doesn't warn you away. It simply states its condition and leaves it there. OK. Climax. Climax was named long before the joke existed, before the internet, before immaturity reached industrial scale. It was meant to sound strong, final, victorious. History had good intentions. Language betrayed them later. At the time, the word meant the highest point. The peak, the finale, nothing inappropriate, nothing funny. Then meanings shifted. Culture changed, and suddenly the town name became a permanent setup. Now every weather report, every road sign, every GPS announcement feels slightly awkward. Residents have heard every joke. They don't laugh anymore. They just wait for it to pass. It always does. Today, Climax is quiet, normal, completely unbothered. The town didn't change its name. It didn't explain itself. It just endured. Because sometimes history doesn't escape the joke. It outlives it. Last Chance. Last Chance began as a warning, not a metaphor, a literal heads up. This was the final saloon before the mountains. After this point, there was no help, no supplies, no good decisions left to make. Miners stopped here to prepare. In theory, in practice, they drank. Hard, because nothing says I'm ready for the wilderness, like questionable whiskey and absolute confidence. Drink now, regret later. By morning, some miners moved on. Others reconsidered life choices. A few never made it past the bar. The name stuck because it was accurate, painfully accurate. Last Chance wasn't branding, it was customer information. Today, Last Chance is calmer. The saloon days are long gone, but the name remains. A reminder that history often labels places based on the worst decision made there repeatedly. And in this case, the name did its job perfectly. Big Bone Lick. Big Bone Lick was named very literally, too literally. Early settlers found massive animal bones sticking out of the ground. Huge ones, terrifying ones. Naturally, they assumed something enormous used to live here. And they were correct. They just didn't workshop the name afterward. The lick part refers to a salt lick, a natural mineral deposit animals gathered around. Mammoths, mastodons, creatures built like walking lawsuits. To scientists, this was a gold mine. To everyone else, it sounded like a crime scene. Word spread quickly. Explorers came, scientists followed, and eventually museums got involved. Even Thomas Jefferson took interest, because nothing says serious science like the president being fascinated by giant bones. Today, Big Bone Lick is preserved as history, educational, important, scientifically valuable, and still named like it belongs on a list somewhere. The fossils are real, the science is solid, the name forever suspicious. Weed. Weed was named after a man, a perfectly respectable man. His name was Abner Weed, a lumber entrepreneur, a serious businessman, a man who had no idea his last name would one day become a marketing strategy. At the time, the name meant nothing unusual. It was just a surname. Then language evolved, culture shifted, and suddenly the town's name stopped being historical and started being hilarious. Weed didn't change. The world did. Tourism noticed immediately. Souvenir shops appeared. Hats, shirts, stickers, all proudly declaring where you've been. People didn't come for the scenery. They came for the photo and the caption. Today, Weed is calm, normal, entirely functional, but forever trapped in a joke it didn't write. The town didn't chase the punchline. The punchline moved in. And as usual in America, tourism handled the rest. America wasn't named carefully. It was named honestly, by tired people, lost people, people who just wanted the paperwork to stop, and somehow, that honesty survived. Subscribe for more history that proves humans have always been like this.